might want you to talk to people next to you and answer these two questions. Contact work is blank, and discipleship is blank. If you don't know what contact work is, that's fine. Maybe your partner does. All right. Go. Doesn't matter. Groups, threes, twos.
I would say contact work. So like going to be with kids where they are and just like helping them. Whereas discipleship is really more deeper conversations. Their life looks like where it's going and then just close to that and like helping lead them in that. Which is like a project of contact work. Discipleship is like
All right, let's hear some. Start with contact work first. Contact work is blank. What would you say?
Just being with them.
Like outside of groups.
This is their outside.
Anything else?
just being present where they are.
All right, discipleship is
Deeper conversations that are a product of contact work.
what else?
Teaching.
Where contact work might be a little more natural in the way that it happens with you, their discipleship's more small, being directed.
That's a good point. You guys think that contact work and discipleship are different, or how are they different, or are they the same?
I think that discipleship would fall under contact work. It's just a more specific branch of
Why do you say that?
because it's living the life with them, it's being with them.
What else? Who else?
I'd say like also discipleship is like a product of contact work. Because like when you're hanging out with them, like it leads to discipleship.
That was really similar and different.
I mean, both of them, you do both of them with the intention of eventually getting to the point where you're, you know about their lives and and also they know about your life and you're able to lead them in that. But contact work feels more broad. Just when you put them like that next to each other, whereas discipleship feels more faith focused, more like development focused. And both of them I feel like can have the same products, the same things that come at the end of it.
let's break back up, and I want you guys to answer maybe how have you been discipled, or what's been the greatest discipleship thing you've done? Leave that open for let's share that with each other. The greatest discipleship thing you've done. Fingers.
I'm saying like that has happened to us, that we've
You've received.
Elias is mostly 3 years older than mine, 4 years older than mine, but even just that, him being newly married for a few years, different things, like, we had much different perspectives. This is my senior year of college, that was very helpful in a lot of ways. Figured out a lot of things at that time.
Alright, let's share a little bit. No, I'll have to share, but let's hear a couple.
I would met with Elias every other week for coffee just for almost a year, which is cool. That's the longest period where I ever consistently met with someone where the intention was like getting older than me and we were just talking about life. And there were a lot of times where it was just catching up with each other, but also with someone that I had a lot of questions I could bring to.
Said that I was in Colorado Springs because of the church that I went to. So in our friend's neighborhood, family house and kind of Bible study. And I was like 12, and it was just all adults, so it was able to like maybe get everything to ask questions and get like their perspective.
Anything else? Well, that's alright if not. Next question though is how is maybe what you just described to each other or out loud, how is that different than contact work? We talked about contact work of doing stuff.
if you were the disciple, you have to want it. So it's you're not gonna get much out of it if you use someone you're already doing it by so I have to go do this.
Sometimes contact work is just
discipleship, you have more focus. There's a reason for it. It's confidence. Just being is more like a social thing. Whereas discipleship's more like focus.
Sort of how you've talked about being a leader to everyone, but then you're pouring to just a few selected individuals. Think of it more like that, when you're pouring what you know and your experiences and
It's interesting to hear kind of all of our perspective because this discipleship word and even this contact word, but the discipleship word, if you ask people in Christian communities, what is this? It's a word we throw around a lot. Like, oh, evangelism, oh, well, discipleship, these different things, but no one really knows what it is. And Jesus says, "Go and make disciples. All authority in heaven and earth has been given to me. Go make disciples, baptize them in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Spirit." The word in there is as you are going, not just go and do it, but as you're living your life. And so I would maybe make the argument that maybe a little bit different than what was said, but contact work is a way into discipleship. Like the discipleship is the goal, the end goal. I would say that contact work is not maybe the means to the ends, but that contact work is the ends. Contact work is discipleship. Because you don't need a separate program to be discipled. You don't need a separate Bible study to be discipled. Jesus didn't just host like a seminar once a week and say, all of those who want to be my disciple come at 6 a.m. and learn what I'm going to teach. He lived life with his disciples. The good and the bad, all of it. He did contact work. He was with them. And what you learn in the context of being around someone, or what you learn in the context of being in a family, is something that you can't just inherit through like a discipleship class. Which is why I think contact work is discipleship. Discipleship is relationship. And so our goal as Roots leaders and ministers is to do both of these hand in hand, and they're not that far apart from each other. I saw these quotes, I'm going to write them down, make sure I get them exactly right, but they're not that different from each other, and I really like them. It says contact work is saying, I love you, but the kingdom of God is at hand. Contact work is saying, I love you, but the kingdom of God is at hand. There's an urgency behind being with people. This is like the directed relationship part that we talked about last night with being a Roots leader. Of, yeah, I love you, and I'm going to do things, I'm going to be with you, we're going to share life together. I love you so much that I'm actually delighted to share with you not only the gospel, but our lives as well. That's scripture. Right? It's an invitation. It's not just, hey, come to church. It's, hey, I'm going to go play in the soccer game after church. Do you want to come with me? Hey, I'm going to go do my homework or my laundry. Do you want to just hang out and do that with me? It's an invitation to life. It's a lifestyle, right? Like Austin talked about yesterday, it's a lifestyle. Unless people see the lifestyle, it's really easy to just pluck out pieces of our lives and say, well, on Monday night, I can be a good leader, and then I don't see them the rest of the week. Monday night, I do my leadership, but I don't do the rest of it. And instead, I would challenge us to say, well, it's a lifestyle of living alongside each other. And then you'll notice that the kids that you walk with start picking up things that you never even taught them. They just inherit it. It's just learned. It's like you never talked about spiritual warfare. And now all of a sudden you're engaging in it in a very similar way that maybe I would. It's weird like that. The other quote is discipleship is friendship with a vision, but not an agenda. similar to the quote above, right? We're saying, "Yeah, I love you," but the kingdom of God's at hand. Things are happening. There's an urgency behind what we're meeting. Discipleship is, hey, we're friends. And I have a vision for who you could be. More than that, it's not just my vision. Because if it's my vision, then it becomes an agenda. It becomes, well, I see this in you, and I want to take you from point A to point B. A vision is saying, God, what do you have for this person that I'm meeting with? Who do you see them as? Who are they to become? And what role do I have? It's the question this morning of what are you doing as opposed to what can I do now? Right? These are very similar and intertwined together. So discipleship and content work. I want us to think of, like, if you go, well, how do we disciple kids? How do we disciple students? This is our means to do so. It's contact work. Kids aren't going to come on Monday night or Wednesday night or Sunday even and just learn a bunch of stuff and then go home and put that into practice. They only put it into practice if they see someone put it into practice. You can't just tell them to do something. I've said this before, but like the difference of teaching and training. You might be able to inspire someone, and maybe they feel really animated and excited to go and do one of the things that you talked about, or to apply what they learned at church. But it's only going to go so far. And 99% of the time, by the time they get back in church the next week, they've either forgot about what was said last week, or they haven't really done it, or they did it for like a day and they wanted to do it for a week, and now it's over. And then they start the cycle over again. It's over and over and over. And we think that's discipleship. We'll just come to Bible study and pump your brain full of all this stuff, but your life doesn't look any different. And that's not discipleship. Jesus didn't do that. Jesus taught them how to rely on the Spirit, taught them to love, taught them to live a lifestyle that's contact work and not just Bible study or what we classically think of as discipleship. So now that we've kind of like established that contact work discipleship, number one, right? You got to be with kids. You can't do it without doing that. You can't just show up and kids come to you and that's it. Because this friendship thing here, we can say a lot of like, oh, discipleship is, oh, you bring your friends. Just bring your friends to this and we'll do it. The difference of what this type of discipleship is not bring your friends, we'll teach them, and then they'll go out and do the same thing. This is, we will show you what it means to be a friend. We're not going to just ask you to bring your friends. The conversation and question changes from, hey, let's not be friends, to I'm just going to show you. Everything that we're asking them, we're actually doing. Right? So here's what I want us to do. We're going to talk a little bit about like, well, how do we do that? Say we've like met a bunch of kids, maybe they've shown up, maybe we met them at a game or outside. One of them is just inviting them in. But if you get into a moment where you're needing to use this urgency of the kingdom of God, and that there's a vision, and you're understanding the vision, how do you go from a normal conversation to maybe a holy conversation? How do you make it into something intentional with urgency as opposed to just, oh, we just played Fortnite and that was it? Or, oh, we just got coffee and got up on life. Which is fine for sometimes, but there needs to be more. Right? Because we're not just showing them, well, this is what you do to be a Christian. You just get a coffee and you talk about life. It's more than that. It's doing things together. It's praying together. It's asking questions and advice and giving examples and sharing and being vulnerable. So I want us to break up into different groups and get off the couches. We're gonna like kind of mingle around here, and I'm gonna like start a timer. You can just kind of walk around, and then when I say okay, go, you're going to try to start a conversation with whoever you can find. Pretend that you don't really know them. Let's have this half of the room. So for Wayne over, you guys are initiating the conversation the first time. You guys are pretending to be students, middle school students, high school kids, and you can act aloof, you can act however you want, okay?
And
The goal is to try, we're going to kind of do it before we go a little bit afterwards to dissect it, but try and implement discipleship or contact work in the conversation. And say you don't know them that well. Maybe you've met them once or twice, or you don't know them at all. Alright? Okay, so stand up. Alright. You're at a party, everything's going great, spike ball, woo, this is awesome, everything's going, you're mingling around. Okay, go, conversation. Yeah? What do you like about it?
What was your
So you're at
Play basketball before?
Yeah, I used to play basketball. So So you have B that you like and math you don't like. Second best or something you don't like. Yeah. Any friends in that class? No. So it's also okay. Cool. Any time. Alright. We're gonna do it again. Talk to someone else though. Alright? Okay, so ready? Mingle. Oh, yes, switch partners. So if you were the leader, now you're the kid, and vice versa. Alright, ready, go.
Yeah, this is my first time. It's good. Like, I've been really good. Everyone's really friendly, kind of crazy, but yeah, all the best out of it. Getting better.
Conversations, new guys,
So I think it's good. I mean, yeah, of course, like it's all new to me. But I thought it was cool that like learned about Jesus, because like I haven't actually really heard about having a personal relationship with him before. I've just heard about like
Yeah, I go to the church so far as well.
Do you like marching?
yeah.
Really good. That's a good.
Yeah.
Two
Yeah.
different churches. Alright, sit down. Okay, that's good. High school. Hopefully that was helpful. Did that for two reasons. One, for practice. Two, because some of you are falling asleep. So that helped you wake up, maybe. Let's share the experience. What was it like? What was it like as a leader? Only as a leader. It was awkward.
Yeah, it felt kind of weird.
It was weird.
You know, I was gonna stop laughing.
Jordan was trying really hard to make me feel awkward about it.
Did you succeed?
Yes.
Anything else?
It's like not part of any middle schooler's life to want to continue that conversation. In fact, I was like thinking about it when Anna and I were having our conversation. She was the student. I was like, man, why don't you bring up something a little more deep than, what's your favorite subject in school? And like, I'm trying to bring that up, and it's like trying to get somewhere with the conversation. I'm like, yeah, like help me out here, And I'm like, this is what middle schoolers do. They're not. This is perfect accident, It made it really hard. That's what it is. A segue.
It's also hard when you don't have anything else to bring them into. When you're just trying to talk to them. Like when we're just about to start and there's spike ball happening or octave ball or whatever it is, like it's super easy to get them to come over and do that with you. And that like breaks down barriers, whereas when you're just and I've also been in the roots room where I'm just trying to start a conversation with someone right there and sometimes like pulling teeth or something.
Yeah. Well, for good or for bad, this is part of our job as leaders. And so there's going to be times when you're in the student center or at church on a Sunday morning and you see a family And it's our job to go and initiate a conversation, right? To say, hey, it's good to see you. How's it going? And it's harder as you start to get to know more kids, actually, because then you can just feel comfortable. Like, oh, well, I'll give Michael over there, so I'm just going to play spikeball forever and not go say hi to that new kid that walked in. But we want to have eyes, right? We want to model, right, this discipleship thing that I talked about, instead of like telling kids, oh, you should be inclusive. Go be inclusive. Go be inclusive. It's let me show you how to be a family. Let me show you what it's like to see people on the outside of the room and bring them in. And kids start to see that and go, oh, and you may never have to tell them, hey, go and talk to the kid over there in the corner. Some kids might just naturally go, well, they did that for me and they do that for everyone else. And so, of course, I'm going to do that, right? A couple things that you can always ask, right? Just basic conversation stuff. One, always avoid yes/no questions or one-word answers, right? It's like, what's your favorite subject in school? Conversation's over, right? What was your weekend good? Yeah. Conversation's over, right? So asking questions that lead to a more substantial answer. What did you do this weekend? Well, tell me about that. What type of stuff, right? Like, you can ask deeper questions or questions that kind of peel the layers back a little bit. You're always able to ask them about like family, hobbies, relationships. If you have the relationship with them, you can ask them about their relationship with God. For them, if they're involved in a sport, like those are always good things. And they're really good things to remember and to call back on and go, oh, well, I know Benji's a cross-country athlete. I know Benji loves to fish. So if you ever get stuck in a conversation, you're like, well, Benji, tell me about the last fish you got. Bam. Awesome. Tell me about jiu-jitsu. Grant, tell me about Instagram. But stuff like that, right? New things come up. We should be aware of what's going on. How was homecoming? Oh, who did you go with? Where'd you go to eat? You know, well, how was the music? Stuff like that.
Yeah, I want to see someone who's really good at doing that. Watch Ryan.
Yeah.
Ryan's really good. Really good. So using those questions, let's talk about this, and then we're going to come back to the conversation piece. So in the ministry, there's kind of three different parts. If you were to say the three parties involved in the ministry, who would they be? God. Yes. God.
Leaders.
Yes. Me. And kids. All right. So we've got this, I don't know, super Venn diagram where God and kids meet. Well, actually, let's start with this. Where God and you meet. What would be something that you could call that? Like your personal relationship with God. It's gonna be hard.
Intimacy.
Yeah, like intimacy, or like maybe something that we did at. I feel like I'm playing charades, but the thing that we did at California, we share stories and
Vulnerability.
kind of our testimony. So this is our testimony, right? So it's just you and God. It's your story between you and God. Now, if you're you and the kids, what's that relationship like? Yeah, or I'll just say relationship. It's a relationship. What about God and the kids? Either faith, but like what? Maybe in terms of like Christian words. Like, yeah, I guess bigger Christian words, longer Christian words. So this is testimony, right? Like, what is God trying to do with kids? Right track. Right track. Let's assume the kids don't know Jesus. Yeah, what's another word for that?
Pursuing.
Yeah, but how? Starts with an E. Evangelism.
Oh.
Yeah, so okay, so God and kids, that's evangelism, right? God is going after kids. He's trying to evangelize. He's trying to bring people into His kingdom. God and us, assuming that we're believers, is a testimony, our story. Us and kids is this relationship. Our ministry's sweet spot is right in the middle here, which means that we should be utilizing relationship, testimony, and evangelism in order to meet kids in this center spot. And when we do evangelism, relationship, and testimony, or you can say discipleship or contact work right over here, evangelism, discipleship, and your own testimony, that's when these conversations become holy. That's when they're powerful. So let's talk a little bit more about the conversation and then we can shift gears. So what are a couple different, if you were to talk about like the depth of conversation, what's like a super surface level thing you can talk to about kids? With kids, yeah. How's your day? What about a category? Or what category would that fall into? Sports, but think bigger. Life, well, that's not the biggest category. But what about their life? If you're asking about sports and like yeah, like what what do all those things kind of fall into? About their what aspect or category? It's kind of like logistics or details. Logistics details. How's your day? What's going on? What's your favorite? Logistics details. If you go a little bit deeper, right, we can say, okay, well then maybe there's like an emotional part or a relational part, feelings, right? There's this emotional part. You can ask someone like, what did you do today? That's one level of vulnerability. You can also ask them, well, how did that make you feel? That's another level, right? A deeper level. Now, if we're gonna lay this out another way, or what's another aspect? If you've done the relationship training, maybe this is key to that. If there's like an intellectual, instead of this is intellectual, like an intellectual and emotional. Yeah, there's just physical. I'll put this like kind of here. Yeah, and spiritual. We'll say spiritual is the deepest, right? Spiritual can be divided up into many different places, right? It can be say it's like your personal testimony, it's that evangelism, it's just discipleship on a very intentional level, it's all of those things. So when we're having conversations with kids, you should never stay in one area here. You can't just go, well, tell me about, Zach, what's your hair color?
30 blonde.
Eye color?
Blue.
Shirt size?
Medium.
Let's go talk. Yeah. That's staying right here, right? We don't want to stay right here. We want to go deeper. So I go, Jack, how do you like your hair? Do you like it?
It's pretty sweet.
Yeah, it's pretty sweet.
I like it.
You can go deeper, right? You can go deeper. And then finally, you want to bring into this, the hair thing's a bad example, but say you're talking to a kid and they go, well, how was it, what was going on this weekend? Well, I went to a funeral. Okay, we're right here in this intellectual thing. Well, how did that make you feel? What was that? I'm so sorry. Actually, it kind of sucked. It was like my best friend that committed suicide. And you're going down a little deep. And you can let it sit right there. You go, I'm so sorry. And that's fine. Maybe you're right there. And that's where you're at in that relationship with the kid. Right? When you meet a kid, first, you might not even be able to get to this level. They might say something and you're like, I don't know you. I don't think I have the right to ask you that intimate question or to share something about me. I'm not asking you to go there right away, right? You need to feel it out and know when to go there. But you do need to go there eventually. once you've only gone with intellectual and exhausted that resource and that avenue, it's time to go emotional and add that. How does that make you feel? What's going on? Oh, you got a fight with your dad? I'm sorry. What do you guys fight about? You know, I used to fight with my dad. Here's what we used to fight about. You know, you're talking about that stuff. This is where counseling is really important. But it can't just stop there. It needs to go back down even further to the spiritual realm, right? So we can just believe this, but we can go spiritual in many other ways. And so instead of taking the avenue here of saying, "Man, I'm sorry you went to a funeral," being courageous and bold enough to say, "Hey, what do you think happens after death?" Have you ever thought about that? Do you have faith? Do you know what that is? Have you ever considered that? And then you go, "Well, how does that make you?" And they go, "Oh no, well, you know, my parents are Christians, so that's it." You go, "Oh well, what do you think and how do you feel about it?" And then they go, "Oh, I don't know, I never really thought about it." And you go, "Did you know that God's actually crazy about you and will do anything to just have you know that He loves you?" And I go, "Oh no, that's pretty cool. I had no idea." You know, and then you can finish the conversation. Like, well, maybe we should meet and talk about this more. Right? Our conversations need to follow this trajectory. We can't just stay in one spot. In the same way, you can't just come and shoot from the hip right here. Right? This is what street preachers do, and that's why not a lot of people like them. Because they're just, "You're going to hell." Right? It's all spiritual, and we're like, "Dude, you don't know anything about me, and you don't care about me. So why would I ever let you speak into this area of my life?" So I say all of that of like, there's obviously a million ways to do this, but when you're interacting with kids, be on the lookout for that question of, "God, what are you doing?" And see ways that you can introduce the supernatural into the ordinary. Or maybe you're playing spike ball and you can just ask a question or do something or be bold and throw this out there. Right? This is where it takes guts. It's easy to go, "I'm so sorry." It's really hard to go, "I'm so sorry. Have you ever thought more about what happened to me?" Or what do you think? What was the service like there? Where do you think they are right now? It's very different. But that's what we want to get to. And you only get there through discipleship and contact work, of having a vision, not an agenda, of loving, and also understanding that the kingdom of God is at hand. So let's just take a break